Hello, and welcome to the Traditional Catholic Guy. I'm Doug, and as always, we have Bishop Gabriel Tetro over here with us. Today's episode is going to be on, not that I forgot, I just have to push the button, is on the instant gratification. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We also have, if anyone comes on here, I'd like you to please subscribe. It would be nice for us to get some people involved. And actually, Bishop, I really would like to. This week, I've been very upset. I've had a lot of, what I should just turn off the television and the radio and not get involved with anything is what I really need to do. But it's just crazy what's been going on in the last couple of weeks. I don't think we've talked about this, but we had a past president who was almost assassinated. And it's like the news cycle is over. Let's move on now. Yes. I just can't comprehend the world we're living in today, that people are not concerned that somebody tried to kill an ex-president. And a lot of people think, oh, well, he deserves it. Too bad, the person was off a little bit to the left. I tell you, I mean, I understand that I've only been around for 64 years, but I think that things are really, really bad at this point, and to the point of I'm really afraid of what's going to happen after this election. I don't want to get into political stuff, but I am very worried, and I think a lot of my concern comes from the fact that I see diabolical things happening that in the past I would be afraid that people would call me some kind of religious nut. I'm convinced that these things are happening now. And
they are. And the answer to it is the prayer. So let's start with that. And then,
yes, I'm sorry. We should always start with that.
Of course, but it's a perfect lead-in to this prayer because it reminds us again that God is God and we are not. So, in the name of Padre, Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Amen.
O King of glory, Lord of hosts, who didst triumphantly ascend the heavens, leave us not as orphans, but send us to the promise of the Father, the Spirit of truth. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes. So the abandonment, again, of man abandoning God, and you see as a result of that, something, as you're speaking of, that an ex-president is almost assassinated, and it gets in the news cycle for a few days, and then it becomes politicized, and then it becomes about gun control, and then it becomes about now we need to have someone else that's more to the center instead of far to the right, right? To them, the center is communism, socialism. This is the new center, because that's what the Communist Manifesto said. You keep moving society to further and further away from the center or away from God, and more isolated from him. So that I see is what we're talking about here when we talk about this self-gratification in the moment.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that bothered me this week was that outside the DNC, and I believe I can share this with you now, there are free abortion vans, and there are also free vasectomy. They can give you a snip there as well. So
yes.
I'm just bringing this up here, and you can. I'm sorry for the Fox News stuff on here, but basically, you can see here how demonic this is. Is they have people walking around dressed up as abortion pills.
Yes.
And it's almost gotten to the point, I believe, that they're not concerned about hiding what they're doing anymore. And that when I saw that and I saw the story, it really, how you get that feeling in your stomach when something is wrong. I just got that feeling that, oh my goodness, how could they be doing this and they don't even care? And that leads us all into why is this happening? Why today are these things happening? And the only thing I can really tie it to is the fact that the less people there are, the less souls there are, and the less souls that have to be influenced, and therefore it's all in line with what the devil would like. If you don't want to have babies, you have an abortion. If you don't want to have people who are somehow a problem to society, you kill those off as well. And I'll go into that in a minute. But here is the chart. And, one of, I think, our first episodes we discussed was Vatican II. And I can see here, this chart is from 1960, and Vatican II was around 1962, correct? Yeah. So this shows that in 1960 or 62, I guess they base it on how many births per female. 4.6 births per female. And now it's 2.3. So not only and then I also have a chart about showing how the abortions have gone up as well. But I think, and this is something else that they'll try to push with, is because the abortion rates have been going down because the abortion statistics are not counting how many people are getting abortions through the pill.
Correct.
So, once again, it's a situation where we're being lied to. I'm sorry, I can't find the other chart. And here it is. And it's just a scary situation. It really is. So this line here shows the births, and the red line, very adequate, shows the abortions. So this was the first year that Roe versus Wade was enacted. And you can see here that obviously births have been going up. They're going up, and abortion started here, and then he went down a little bit, and then right around here, everybody was the same. And then, boom, that's I'm very curious as what happened around here. This is about 1985. There was an election in 84 when the Fed did it. Wasn't that Clinton? I think Clinton came into office around that time.
Right.
No, 80 was Reagan. I'm sorry. 80 was Reagan. But I don't know when he left. But anyway, you can see here that the abortion rate skyrocketed. The births went down. But now, they're way, way down. And that's because of the situation utilizing the pill. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what spiritual ramifications are for that, or what from a traditional Catholic situation. Obviously, we have issues with abortion. Mm-hmm. So I have to understand, and another thing that's really bothering me is, I was discussing this with my wife earlier, is that you can go in and get an abortion. They have these abortion things set up. You could just go in there and get an abortion. It's not like, oh my goodness, the mother is going to have complications or might die, or this is just satanic. This is just something that I just can't. Any person that realizes what they're doing should understand that they're committing murder. Now, I understand that a lot of the women, maybe if you're taking a pill, you don't realize that this is a situation. And, I have to admit that at certain occasions, I've felt that there are occasions where I didn't consider it a killing of a baby. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of medical issues about when a baby is the baby, but I know as far as we're concerned, it's at conception. But I heard another situation where a woman went into a clinic, and I think they talked her out of it for some odd reason, which from what I understand, that's not even some. When I had thought that the whole reason for Planned Parenthood was to prevent people from getting abortions, or at least to discuss the situation with the people to see, what your options were, or maybe you can go and you could, no. But now I understand that. And again, it's the whole situation of wordplay. It's Planned Parenthood. No, it's not killing the baby. It's Planned Parenthood. So I'll be quiet for a while. Bishop, why don't you give me some advice and some help?
Well, first of all, one of the things that I am that's important to me is the essence of things. So the essence of the situation with abortion is, as you said, birth control or population control. So they have now developed this whole climate change, this is, we're ruining the planet, all these to justify, but it all comes down to, we need to control the population. If it gets too big, we can't control it, and we need to be able to have control of it. So they devise these things through courts and education, and it ultimately comes down to education too. The problem is that children are indoctrinated. When you
Right.
indoctrinate children into this idea that overpopulation, people are destroying the planet, and all these things, then you have generations that come from that are now willing to vote against or vote for genocide. And this is what it is. It's genocide of the human race, not just
It's a death
genocide
march.
for
Yes.
genocide, but genocide of the human race.
Mm-hmm.
When Margaret Stanger first put this forth, it was to eliminate the Black and Hispanic population because they were not as human, or did they contribute to society as white men do. So the very foundation of it.
Those aren't your words; those are her words. I just wanted to everybody to understand that.
No, that's eugenics, right? That's what
Yeah,
she
yeah.
proposed. This is
Mm-hmm.
what she did and proposed and started Planned Parenthood for this purpose, to
Mm-hmm.
eliminate the undesirables. Not only that, but at the time you couldn't have an ultrasound, but if your child is deformed in any way or has Down syndrome, you can now get an abortion. You can
Right.
eliminate this, and we can create a perfect society of people. This sounds like Hitler, and it should, because he studied her. But
Mm-hmm.
nobody tells you that, and you can't say this in school. They don't teach you this. In fact, you can't go to the school and talk if you're pro-life, but if you're part of Planned Parenthood, you can put up a table and you can indoctrinate and talk to children in public school because it's publicly funded by the government. This is what we've been fighting for a long time. We're fighting against an elite group of men that want to control and destroy the vast majority of the population. Because with a population growing beyond their control, they lose control. So
Right.
this is what this is about. The communist socialist agenda of the Democratic Party is showing forth to people right now that they have been successful in indoctrinating school children and people that watch TV and people that watch it in this. So they're putting it right in our face, and they're saying
Yes.
to those who are opposed to it, you think that people are opposed to this? Watch. We will put it right in your face. And we will say to you that the majority of people will accept this. Now, I remember communism. When I first learned of communist socialism, I thought all we need to do is educate people on it. But do you realize the majority of people today, if by poll, know it's communism? They know that. And they think that is what needs to happen in this country. Not that they are ignorant, not that they aren't educated about communism or socialism or what it is. They're not told the whole story, obviously. Nobody could tell you the whole story because then nobody would ever fall for it. But they lie.
Right.
And same with abortion. So they indoctrinate into this, and then they put it when they're patient, when these generations come, and now they're putting it in our face. They're saying to you, there's a divide in this country. They want to make sure we understand the divide. The divide is against the old people and the young people, because now they don't have just school to indoctrinate these children. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the internet.
Yeah.
So hardly, I think if under 25, only like 15% get their news from television or a newspaper or something.
Yeah. Most of them getting it from their phones. That's true. That
From
is
their
true.
phone. And who controls it? Google. And who does Google fund? The Democrat Party. Why? because the agenda is all there. And as you said, the Second Vatican Council,
Well, it's not
Bergoglio.
just Google. I'm sorry, Bishop. It's not just Google. They're getting a
No,
lot of their information from TikTok, which is at the moment is owned by the Chinese government,
yes,
or parts of it by the Chinese government. So,
right.
yeah,
I just
these
use
are just
Google as a general thing, but they're all in the cabal, right? A
yeah,
cabal is a group of people coming together that don't have anything in common, but are coming together for a specific purpose. And their
right.
purpose is to destroy authority, the authority of God, the authority of the church, and to take that authority to themselves. And now this is why it's raw power. This is raw power that they want. And again, they know exactly what they're doing when they put those abortion um, uh, bans outside of the ENC, and when they offer these things, and the media, they get the media to come on and spread it. They want us all to know that they have done their job. We've stopped teaching our children. We've handed them over to the state to be taught. We're letting them know that they've done their job, and they're going to show us how successful they've been in their job. Even though most people won't buy it, they will be able to control the narrative and control the votes because they have control of the media and of the technology. And it's all working together against the human race. This is the AI thing. This is about transhumanism. They
Hmm.
all want to eliminate suffering, and they're going to do it by eliminating the human race or our bodies. This ultimately will lead us to have a situation that we talked about in this episode, instant gratification, because this is what they are indoctrinating us into, never having to suffer. So the medical field, the fast food delivery, you never have to make a sacrifice. You never have to suffer. The minute you want something, you can have it. And that will include an abortion, as they're showing us right now in Chicago. And if you want to know proof of hell that it exists, look at Chicago this week. That is really hell. It's really
Well,
hell here on earth.
I used to live in Chicago for a short period of time, and I can tell you, I've never lived in a more corrupt state in my life than the Illinois or Chicago.
Yeah,
Mostly Chicago. I can't really speak for the entire state, but it, again, it comes back to what's on display, and it's I just can't understand. I can get it. I can see how some people might not understand certain things.
yeah,
Okay, when we go into traditional Catholicism, that's a totally different situation than, in my mind, in what's life and death and what's right and wrong and the simple things that everyone abides by.
yes,
I don't think that. I think every society forever has rules that everyone kind of abides by, and murder is usually right on top of the list.
well, because
So
it's society, and a society requires a relationship between persons. What have they done? They've eliminated relationships between persons. I mean, kids sit on their phone at the dining room table if they even eat at the table. If they're not ordering out their own meal, whatever they want, being delivered to the house, and they take it in their bedroom and they sit on their phone. And they talk to who? Probably a lot of AI stuff. They watch this and they have no relationship with other men. And this is being presented to them. See, you don't have to make a sacrifice. When you have talking to another person, have a relationship with them, you have to make a sacrifice. And it has love is a sacrifice. This is what we're speaking about here. It is anti-love. It goes against this self-sacrificing love. And that's why they have to pull people away from the mass, away from the faith. This idea that you are loved and someone makes a sacrifice for you. And then once they've got these kids, and the communists in the 1930s say, we will take over the United States through the children. We will bring them into entertainments. We will bring hedonism into their lives. We will get them addicted to all kinds of things, and then we'll be able to control them. They said this point blank in the 1930s. Father
yeah,
Conklin spoke about this in New York. It was up on the internet for about 15 minutes, and it was taken down because again they're controlling what people hear and what their thinking, or they'll
Hmm.
let this go because we're just wacko right-wing conspiracy theories that get, nobody believes this anymore. They'll let that go because the whole thing with Communist Manifesto is you have to have the thesis, which they present, and then you have to have the antithesis. And through
Hmm.
the antithesis, you move people more to the thesis because then you say this is conspiracy, or see, nobody believes this, then you will never get high numbers of people because you won't talk to your neighbor. If you go, I did this, I went around here and talked to our neighbors, and there was only one of our neighbors, and that in a family there was two of them. There's only one of our neighbors within a walking distance of here that are Democrat. And again, in the household, she's Republican and he's a Democrat. Not one. So when I go to the polls here,
Hmm.
I see them say it's 51-50 because I went out and talked to my neighbors. If I
Yeah.
put something online, they could control that, but they can't control me talking to my neighbor yet.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
socialism will do. They can't control me going to my neighbors and talking to my neighbors. And my neighbors were willing to talk. They were like, yes. And we talked about us defending one another, to watch out for one another. This was the old idea of America. You knew your neighbors, you trusted your neighbors, you had the same values because you had, the basic values. All of this they have to destroy by pulling the generations, the children, away from their parents, and then indoctrinating them so that they're at odds with their parents now. And that they're being very, very successful with this. And right now, again in Chicago, they're giving you a visualization of how successful they have been.
Well, it is very scary. Another thing I touched on earlier was some of the craziness that's going on in some other places. Now, in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
they are now going to allow people to kill themselves.
Sure.
And basically, um, although recently it seems like they've delayed it by 3 years. But yeah, they basically have a law in the books that allows people, it's called the MAID law. It allows people to have the personal choice to remove themselves from our lives, from the
Yes.
world. Another thing is that it's not just for people who are ill, pain wise. They're also opening it up to people who have mental illness now. So that seems like it's walking on a very thin line. Is how do you determine what somebody is too mentally ill to survive in the world? That seems very subjective to me.
And that sounds very much like Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood, right? You see that word in there. Canada recognizes that mental illness can cause the same level of suffering. See, this is how they sell it because people don't
Yeah.
like to suffer. We don't like to suffer. But our Lord Jesus Christ redeemed our suffering. If we are in the mystical body of Christ, and therefore we merit what Christ gained for us by him suffering on the cross for us, and we unite our suffering to his suffering, it's meritorious. But here these men speak about, from a natural point of view, get rid of God, put him out of it. And now we talk about suffering as the greatest evil of mankind. And then they say to us, we can eliminate suffering. We will, through our science and through the medical field and through the food industry, you will never have to suffer again. But ultimately, they will come to say, and they're saying it now, that we have to eliminate the body. The transhumanists talk about we need to be able to take man's consciousness and take it out of his body and have man live that way. This sounds absolutely crazy, but this is growing in popularity amongst people because of this same idea that you can kill yourself. If you're mentally ill and you're not able to live in reality, you have a right, because you will have the right to decide for yourself if you want to die or not. Or under a communist socialist regime, the state has that right. But the individual parent, the parents, the spouse, these people have no rights under communism, none whatsoever.
Well, of course not. So if these people in Canada that are in so much pain that they decide to kill themselves,
Yes.
how does that affect their soul?
How does it affect their soul? If the church teaches very clearly that a person who commits suicide goes to hell.
That's
But,
what I thought. I just wanted to hear you say that.
well, it's
But
true. But there also, if a person to commit a mortal sin has to know it's wrong and do it anyway.
correct,
So
right?
if a person is mentally ill, and say for instance, look what's happening in the transgender thing with children.
Mm-hmm.
These children don't have the capability to make a decision about what's going to affect their entire life. Who's making the decision for them? Who's teaching, talking to them, and indoctrinating them? In schools, I know this from a personal thing, and I won't get into the personal of it, but
Mm-hmm.
someone very, very close to me was convinced that he, as a young man, was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he grew, obviously, the Catholic values, Catholic family, all that. But he went to school. And at school, teachers noticed certain things about his behavior. He's small because he had CF. He's small. He didn't play sports because he was small. So he found girls that he hung around with. They saw this. And then was called into the counselors, and the counselors started talking to him, and they start convincing him. And then he goes to the doctors because he has to go because of his condition. And they start asking him questions. Do you ever thought about killing yourself? Do you feel like that you're, whatever they ask that. And of course, he's a kid, so he's answering the questions. And then they start marking him. This is like mad scientists, right? Oh, this is a really good one that we can experiment on.
Yeah.
And then all of this is done, the school, the medical, all of it against the parents. So when the parents talk to the child, then the child starts to feel like your parents don't understand you. They're old. These are these people. They understand. And
Yeah,
then,
they trust the doctors.
right.
Absolutely.
And now, Hillary Clinton wrote the rights of children. And in the rights of children, if they do not want to go to church, if they don't want to do something, they have the right, and the state will come in and protect that right of that child who is 7 or 8 years old from not doing what their parents want. If their parents are telling them to do something contrary to what the state wants, this is socialism and communism. It's already
Absolutely.
here. It's already here. This has been going on. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that it is not the generations have not been indoctrinated enough into it. And the other problem in this country is that we have guns. And this is why they fight so much to try to convince people to freely give up their guns. Because it works in Canada, because Canada passed a law and everybody had to turn their guns in. And they did. So as long as you have, this is why the Second Amendment, against a rogue government, we are to have the same firepower, not just guns, the same firepower as those in the government to protect ourselves against a rogue government. And so all of these issues are considered right-wing issues, but they really are the true humanitarian issues, protecting the human race from the genocide of a few mad people like Soros and Bill Gates and these guys that belong to the Burger Society, about creating this utopian world. And to have a utopian world, you need to eliminate all the undesirables.
I think that's definitely Nazism. But what I'm trying to understand is, are they doing this because they want their heritage to continue forever, and the rest of us will be so low down and uneducated and scraping and killing each other and fighting each other? Because that's what we're all trying to do.
Right,
Chaos.
right.
Okay, you have to have
Yeah,
chaos.
absolutely.
If you don't have chaos, you can't have a revolution.
Right.
So is it because they feel like they're above all of us and their family will be protected through all of this, and yet everyone else will just be like in a movie, they'll be in some spaceship above us and the rest of us will be in this earth that is almost useless?
I don't believe so. I mean, they are the elitists, right? This started in the 30s and 40s, the Society of the Elitists. And these were the billionaires. At that time, to be a billionaire, nowadays it's not that uncommon, but these were the men. We knew who they are. We named them Rockefeller, Rothschild, Morgan. These were these men that said, what we need to do, because we are the smartest and the brightest, we have created this technology. We need to eliminate a certain amount of the population that is not going to contribute to humanity. And they talked about this idea of utopia. And this goes back to the Communist Manifesto. It was all about the utopia created. But you do need to have a workforce. You need to have the gold. You need to have the cattle
Yeah.
that you use, and you feed them, but you control them. And you use them for what you can get out of them. And this was, again, from the Communist Manifesto, which came out of the French Revolution. This whole thing was to topple authority, but not to topple it to destroy authority, to take it over, to have authority and to have control over things. But they were smart enough to know that they needed to be patient. They needed to take over education, and that went through the courts. They needed to have control of the courts. And how do you do it? You pay them off with money. So you make money to make people's lives easier. These men made their money on technology, or the industrial revolution.
Mm-hmm.
They made these things so that it was all about marketing this through the media to say to people, you don't have to go out and wash your clothes anymore. We will create a machine, and that machine will do all the work for you. But what they had in mind was, eventually we will be human machines, because there are certain things at the time that you couldn't do anything. That's why this whole thing with robots and all of this has become so much a part of our conversation, because they really do want to eliminate the human race, or as much of it as they can, because we are the problem. When you have relationships with persons with freedom and intelligence, if they have that freedom, then they can oppose you. Take their freedom away from them, they can't oppose you. And if they try to, then you beat them down. This goes back to slavery, right?
Yes.
Blacks were enslaving men 400 years before they were enslaved. Let's, be honest about the history here. The whole slavery goes way, way back. It wasn't
Right.
invented by white industrialists here in the United States to impose upon blacks.
Well, the way I look at it, Bishop, is that the people who have the power they always oppress somebody else. It doesn't matter if they're white, black. It matters if rich, poor, and that's the way it always is. It's the rich people or the people in power that have
Yeah.
control over everybody else. So I understand your point, and I agree with your point.
The
But we
only
all have to.
exception has been in the Catholic Church, when you have the true Catholic Church, because God is the monarch, and everyone below him, Pope, bishops, are all there as stewards of what God has given to us. And since he is a benevolent monarch, then under the monarchy, you didn't have this corruption of power. You had in certain individuals, and those individuals were then disciplined, but you didn't have,
Hopefully,
when you get rid of God, take God out of it, right? Nietzsche, God is dead. Now man can fully be what he was meant to be. That's a full quote of his. Not just that God is dead, but God is dead, so now man can be
but
fully what he's meant
but
to
but what does that mean? They could be fully what they're supposed to be. That they can do science experiments to go beyond what they're supposed to, or
be. Yep.
is it something different from that? I
No,
mean,
it's
I
that.
I kind of see it also though tangled in with I don't like you, and therefore I can do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little more dangerous, I think, than the other thing. Obviously, it's a spiritual issue, and that without a doubt,
Yeah.
that's part of it. But
It,
it just seems to be that okay. Now that I don't have to worry about God,
mm-hmm.
um, I can rewrite a law. I can use the laws to go against somebody I don't particularly like. I can do everything that I feel is within my right to do.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, when I'm the one that has the power and when I'm the one that has the money, I can do whatever I want. And
Right.
then, yes, you're right. And then I'm God now.
Yes, and this is what they sold at the Second Vatican Council. Every individual person is their own God. But that's what they sold it. That's how they marketed it. But they didn't ever intend that. What they intended to say was, with modernism, that humanity is God as a whole, humanity as a whole, which is called pantheism. So humanity as a whole is the divine presence in the world. And they will say then the Supreme Pontiff represents humanity. We see this with the synod on synodality. You have this idea, but it's always to say, we don't believe in God and humanity isn't God. We are. We, the elite, the crossbones, or what's they called, skull and bone society out of Harvard and out of Princeton.
Mm-hmm.
These are the
Yeah.
elites, right? These are the ones that are going to be the smartest and the brightest, and they know better what's good for humanity and mankind. And we really are not necessary to them. So this is the difference between that in man and God's divine revelation, is that we are not necessary to God either, but he loves us. And because he loves us, he has given to us freely without any benefit to himself. What he has given to us in this world is divine revelation. That's a benevolent God. Every other religion has a God who is a taskmaster, who is someone who is mean and wants to use man and for their own benefit. And this only in Christianity, and particularly in Catholicism, do you have the God of revelation, that he loves and cares for us and has given us these things that he has given to us so that we would know who we are and that we would act like him in society and bring about the benefit to every person. This is why in Catholic societies, hospitals were started by Catholics, universities by Catholics. All of these came out of the Catholic Church as a way of responding to this basic fundamental theology. But the Second Vatican Council established the one world church, which is the first point in the socialist agenda of the Cabal. One world church, one world economy, which they're working on right now, and then
Mm-hmm.
the one world government, which issues in the Antichrist as a one
Yeah.
world leader. We know this. We just don't know how it's going to unfold, but you can see it unfolding. Can we stop it? Certainly. Our
I hope so.
choices. Our
That's the
choices.
reason why I'm here. That's the reason why I'm trying to do this as little as no one's watching me. I like having conversations with you, and
Yeah.
if I can, I just feel like now that I have to try to do something,
Yeah.
whatever that something is, and this is my something, because God asks us to perform in different ways, and this is the way that I feel comfortable.
And
So
this is perfect. This is exactly what should be happening. You and I are speaking. We're talking. We're not texting. We're talking, and we're talking about what is beyond our own experience, what we understand, because we care about it. We don't want I don't want you enslaved. I don't want you to be a slave to anyone, not to Satan, nor to the devils, which some of them are men,
yeah,
that are out there trying to enslave you. Abortion is slavery. Vasectomy is a slavery. You are a dog. You're being treated like a dog. You take a dog in and have a dog fixed so it doesn't have any more puppies, because those puppies now are a burden to you unless you're selling them, right? So some puppies, you have to have the best, the good breeding and everything in order to sell those puppies, and you can make money off them. This is the same idea they have with us. We are the same thing like that. They're going to create this good breed of intellectual, and the good people, and all the rest of them will be euthanized. And they're doing this right in front of us, and no one speaks out. And if you do speak out, they have a way of controlling that who hears it, and not very many people do, because they are watching the media, right? I just
yes,
saw this on my YouTube channel. I got I got one of the videos taken down um, because it was inconsistent with the facts that are widely known. By who? By what's that called? Not WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks, but WikiLeaks is made up of people that put things up there. You can put
Right.
fake information on WikiLeaks.
Yeah, but not that's not it. What's it called? It's if you search anything, the first thing that comes up, it gives you.
Google?
It's like the Google thing, but it's called Wiki something.
No, it's yes, you're right. We got it. We understand.
Yeah.
But
So
why do you think that this has taken us so long to actually believe that this is happening? Did COVID wake us up because we got to see what was going on with a lot of things in the schools and from the home learning? I think that helped a lot.
it did, but it didn't. That was calculated too. I watched a video 5 years before the pandemic
Uh-huh.
from Davos. Davos is the meeting of all of that, and it
Yep.
was Bill Gates, and Bill Gates was talking about the chip and the benefits to humanity of having people chipped. They're not using the word chip like that, but they were. And he said two things. He said, but we need to continue to develop the um, internet capability. We need 5G capability to be able to run all of this.
Right.
At that time, it was 3G. And we need a global pandemic to be able to justify the reason for this. That video, again, you can't find it anywhere. It's been scrapped, thrown out. That's what they can do, get rid of it. I saw it. I'm not into all of these things. I don't search these things. I saw the video. I heard the video. It was before the COVID thing happened. So when COVID came about, I realized very early on that what they were doing, they're trying to justify the chip. Now, talk about the chip. The chip is exactly what we've been talking about. It will be, every person will have to have it. You cannot buy or sell without it. They will track what you do, where you're going. They will be able to control all kinds of things.
But they don't need to do a chip. They have it on your phone right now, Bishop.
But they're going to put it in you.
They're
The
not
problem
putting it
is,
in me.
yeah, it's on your phone, but you can smash your phone.
Sure.
They want it in you, so that. And right now, just yesterday, I went into a store, and instead of checking out, I walked through a grate, and it saw everything that I had, all the codes and stuff like that. Um, this is what they're trying, and you know what? Instant gratification. I didn't have to stand in line. That's instantly gratifying. I have more time to do what now? But there's, if I can do that, if I can go through the drive-through when I'm hungry and I can get whatever I want and I can just keep driving and it picks up something and I don't have to talk to somebody, I don't have to have any connection with them. I can slowly drive through and get what I want. Isn't that a really good thing? That's what they're selling. And what did they do first? They chipped dogs, right? What did they do first? They do a vasectomy on a dog. They experiment on animals first, but we are those animals that they're experimenting on ultimately, because the other animal doesn't have an intellect. It doesn't have freedom. It can't think. It can't reflect back. It can't look to the future. We can, and they know that. And that makes us a danger to them. We can resist them. And as long as men have the ability to fight back, equal ability to fight back, it'll slow down their progress. So they're going to continue to work. We talked about at the beginning, President Trump being attempted assassination. The very first thing they came out with after this is gun control. Gun control. It keeps justifying why we need gun control. They don't care about President Trump or anyone else. They need to get people to willingly to be good humanitarians, give up their ability to defend themselves. Once they have that, Kamala Harris said the first thing she would do in office is gun control.
She's changing her mind about that all of a sudden. But I understand your point.
Because it's not popular, but
the point is that they want to take away our guns because we can't then we can't defend ourselves. And I absolutely agree with you. But I don't know how you mentioned earlier that we're allowed to have the same amount of weapons that they do. I don't see anybody driving around in the tank. I don't see any F-16s that are flying overhead that we have access to.
Well, no, yes, you're correct. But we have assault rifles that can. This is what they're talking about getting rid of, right?
No, actually, to be honest with you, we cannot get an assault rifle that does that. Okay,
Yeah.
you have to pull the trigger every time you shoot. Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't. So I just want, because people don't understand. There's, one of the things that came out after the assassination attempt of President Trump, and they were putting out these ridiculous. They were like showing a few things that the guy had, and they said, "Oh, he went in and he bought 50 rounds of ammunition. Why did he need 50 rounds of ammunition?" That's because they're sold that way.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly. Right.
it's just insane. The people that there's the gun owners, and then there's these other people who don't ever want to have a gun to begin with anyway, because
Right.
they think that they're protected or they have their own protection.
Right. Right.
I'm here in the middle of Florida in nowhere. Luckily, I'm in a nice community that I can hopefully assume something would be happening, but not necessarily. There's no people around here with guns or anything, but I'm going to hold on to mine.
Yeah.
And my wife and I recently became gun owners. Within the last 2 years. We
Excellent.
took our gun classes. We took we go to the shooting range,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, without having that sort of education, there's nothing I could do.
And
So
right.
I'm thankful that we're getting into this, but I'm also very worried. I'm very, very worried
Well,
about what's going on right now.
let me give you a little bit of hope as far as humanity is. Again, there are people, and they've talked about this for a while. They know and have the capacity, and these are wealthy men, have the capacity to be able to change the polar positive and negative in the atmosphere, which would eliminate electricity. If you eliminated electricity, you would equalize all men, because the government can only do what they could do, and they all are investing in everything that's run by computers, which requires electricity, which requires this. But your handgun, and that's why they wanted to try to chip guns, they wanted to try all this so they could control it, just like your TV and stuff like that. But your handgun, they can't control. They can control your car. They can turn your car off instantly if they want to, because it's all computer run. They can,
and your phone and your television and your refrigerator,
everything,
and your Amazon and this and that. Yeah.
But when you have a gun that operates on the manual thing, they can't do that. And so there are persons that say that if it ever got to that point, because they understand that it could get to that point, that they would do that. You and I have to be aware of that and be prepared for it. And that means to be smart, to know the signs of the times, like Christ said. But ultimately, what they can't take from us is the faith. They can take a lot of other things. They can't take the faith. And it's in these times that saints are made, because you have to be willing to sacrifice so much in order to have your faith. You may have to sacrifice a lot of stuff to have your faith. Your faith, then, if it's the most important thing for you, it's the most important thing. It's what you live for. It's what you make your decisions based upon. You will feel secure in the midst of all of these things going on. But if you're putting your hope or your security in money or even guns or all of these other things, they'll always be one step ahead of you. But they can't take your faith from you. They can't take that. They've tried in every country of communism to take people's faith from them, and they've failed miserably. In Russia, when communism fell, people came back out again to worship. It was on Easter, and they made the responses after 80 years. They made 60 years. They made the responses. They had taught their children. They had passed it on underground. Men will not be told that they are going to be enslaved to anyone. They will give themselves in love to others, but they will not be enslaved. That's something that goes contrary to the human nature, to be enslaved to anyone or anything, unless you don't know what it is to be free. And this is where we have two generations now. They have no idea what it is to be free. So they're very willing to give up in order. If you give me a hamburger when I'm hungry, I'll sell you my birthright, right? It goes back to Esau and Jacob. We have all these examples. So what we need to do, again, and what you're doing here and what I'm trying to do, is educate people to get them to know God as he is, not as Francis is telling you he is, or these people are telling you that he is, because they're socialists. Francis is a card-carrying socialist. He there's nothing Christian about him. He's a socialist. And he's there working along with them, in union with them, as the Second Vatican Council did, in order to bring this about, which is their plan, and they're sticking to their plan.
Scary, scary stuff.
It is scary, but again, it's not. It's, in one sense, as men, it's exciting to us. We are charged with coming up with solutions when there's conflicts, when there's these things going on. We have to come up with solutions. And if you look throughout history, like the Vendée, these Catholic men came up with solutions, and they fought. They fought not only with guns and stuff to protect their family and not their property, but their family and their faith. They fought by educating men to the value of their spiritual life. Man is body and soul. Our soul is greater than our body. If we are religious men, that means we believe and we practice the faith. We increase every day the strength of our soul. We increase every day our faith. We increase every day our trust in God. So that when these things are voiced by men who have given up God, who have rejected God, we hear what they say and we realize the power that they have over many things that we have become accustomed to and that we don't want to give up. I don't want to give up being able to drive down the street without coming into roadblocks and have to show my ID. The ID I won't have because I won't be chipped, right? This is, again, they're threatening us, and out of fear, men are saying to them, well, it's better to be able to have these things and let them have a little bit of their power than, because I'm afraid. Fear can never be the response of a man. Love has to be the response. Our Lord said, love your wives, right? He didn't say be afraid. Love them. Love your children. Priests, love your faithful. Bishops, love the priests. Supreme Pontiff, love the bishops. It's hierarchy. And this love is a sacrifice. And sacrifice admits to the value of suffering. I suffer something. When I chose to respond to you asking me about this video, I sacrificed every other thing that I could be doing right now for this, which means that I love this.
And I appreciate that.
You love this because you're sacrificing what you could be doing because you love this. This is the kind of love that is the love of God that the faithful need to know and they need to appreciate, because these other men will not sacrifice. They will sacrifice you for them. They will not make a sacrifice for you. And that's the difference.
One last thing I have to say.
Yes.
I was watching this television program the other day. The name of the show is called Evil. Not that I'm supporting it or not, but I do like it. It's a lot of spiritual stuff in there, a lot of good messages. I really haven't seen anything that I would have an issue with. But in the last episode, there were two women were talking to each other, and the woman was, obviously doing something that she shouldn't have been doing, and they were working that into the storyline. So they were asking her, so did you? She was saying that she was in this building, and the building had collapsed, and there were three other people who survived, and the people who survived had seen an apparition carrying a lamb, and that brought them out of the building. But that woman decided to just get in there and say that she was also a survivor. And it turned out that she was really somebody who was in there to just do bad things. But so when they started questioning her, at the end of it, she realized, okay, they know that, what's going on with me and that I was in here. So she turns around to them and she says, do you ever wonder why there's so much hate and violence and death in the world today? You know why? Because you're losing. And that's
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, wow, you know what? It's perfect. It's so distinct, and it's something that we need to think about every single day. Thank you, Bishop.
We do. And Christ is victorious. So if you feel like you're a victim, then Christ became the victim so that we could be the victor, right? None of us are victims. You know, in Christ, we are already victorious. It's already won. It's already done. But Satan can convince us, and the demons, which some of them are men, can pull you to use your freedom to leave God and join them because it looks like they're winning. It looks like if I'm going to have the benefits that I want, I need to be joined with them. And that's again what the DNC is trying to give the message. They're trying to show you, look, we're winning. We are the ones that are going to be in power. And if you're going to want to get along, then come join us. The problem is they will do what every other communist socialist agenda has done. They use the minority. And then once they get in power, they destroy the minority because they see that person cannot be trusted because they were willing to sell their own dignity, their own self in order to get along. And that
Right.
makes that person very dangerous. So these people that think that they are being supported in the DNC, namely, and I mean this just because I'm that way, gays, blacks, and women, they have empowered you. They have told you that they're empowering you. You will be the first ones that when they get a stronghold in power, they will destroy because they will know that you cannot be trusted because you sold out in order to have this little bit of something here. And, but you can't convince men of this yet. It's only after the fact, unfortunately, for most people. Until then, they'll just say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. So should we end with a prayer?
I think we should end with the prayer.
Okay. Padre et Filii Spiritus Sancti. Amen. I beg thee, dear Jesus, that he upon whom thou hast graciously bestowed the sweet savor of thy words and the knowledge which thou hast given to us, may also possess thee, who is the font of all wisdom, and who shine forever before our face. It is thee, O Lord, that is my portion and my prize. It is thee that is my all. And these prayers that I prayed before and this one after have attached to them indulgences of 300 days is granted to the faithful. And this is Pope Leo the 13th on December 13th, 1898.
Thank you, Bishop. So
right.
With that, we are going to end our episode. Hopefully we'll see everybody again next week or whenever we decide to come back on again.
Okay.
But thank you, Bishop. And that's him over there.
All right.
and have a good evening.
All right. God bless. Thanks.
Okay.